Good morning, girls. I hope you all are safe at home. Today, we'll begin with the second chapter, The Growth of Nationalism. Now, before I begin, you can see I have underlined a few words and the meanings are also written. So, while I read, make sure you follow the same in your textbooks and write down the meanings. So, let's begin. The growth of nationalism. Now, nationalism, it refers to a sense of patriotism. It means a feeling of unity among people who share the same culture, history, language, etc. The French Revolution. The French Revolution of 1789 was one of the earliest nationalist movements in the world. All the nationalist movements that took place in the world in the 19th century were influenced in one way or the other by the French Revolution. So the French Revolution, it took place in 1789, and this was one of the earliest nationalist movements in the world, and it influenced all the other nationalist movements that took place in the world during the 19th century. Now we'll see the causes of the revolution, the reasons, the causes that led to the outbreak of the revolution. There were many causes which contributed to the outbreak of the French Revolution. First, we'll see political causes. At the beginning of the 18th century, France had a hereditary absolute monarchy. Now, monarchy, it means a kingdom that is ruled by a powerful head. Now, this head, it can be a king, a queen, or emperor. So this absolute monarchy, it was hereditary. It was passed from one generation to the other. The king held himself as the representative of God on earth. He enjoyed absolute powers and his will was the law. So the king, he was considered as the representative, God's representative on earth, and he enjoyed absolute powers. His powers, they were not restricted. He had all the powers. And his will was the law. Louis XVI, who ruled over France at the time of the Revolution, lacked leadership qualities. He indulged in petty intrigues and was more interested in hunting, eating, and merrymaking. Further, he was greatly influenced by his wife, Marie Antoinette. She was extravagant and interested in enjoying life. So Louis XVI was the one who ruled over France during the time of the French Revolution, and he did not have any leadership qualities. He was influenced by his wife. Now his wife was a extravagant, means a spendthrift, one who spends money without restrictions, and she was interested in enjoying life. We'll see the reasons one by one, the causes. The French administration was marked by nepotism. Nepotism means it is an act of using power to get good posts for family members. So, in the French administration, there was a system of nepotism. The people in power, they used their power to get jobs, to get high posts for their family members. High posts were given to nobles and aristocrats who were not conscious of their duties. All the high positions, they were held by the aristocrats and the nobles, and these people, they were not conscious, they were not aware of their duties. There was no uniform system of laws in the country. Punishments were rigorous and biased. Now, the system of law that was there in France, it was not uniform, and punishments, they had severe punishments, and these punishments, they were biased, which means they were partial. The aristocrats were not punished for certain crimes. So why were the punishments biased? Because the aristocrats, the high class people, they were not punished for certain crimes. Common people hardly had any share in the administration. Now, we already saw that the French administration, it was marked by nepotism. They gave jobs, their high posts were given to their own family members. So the common people, they did not have any share in the administration. The system of elections was not prevalent at the time. There were no elections during those times. These causes produced discontent among the masses. So these were the reasons which led to dissatisfaction among the people. Now we'll move on to the social causes. We saw the political causes. Now next we'll see the social causes that led to the French Revolution. The French society was characterized by extreme inequalities. There were many inequalities. The society was characterized by extreme inequalities. It was divided into three classes. The French society was divided into three classes. The clergy comprised the first estate. Now, in the first class, there were the clergy. Clergy means the religious leaders, the ministers, priests, etc. The nobility comprised the second estate. In the second estate, there were the nobility, the nobles, the aristocrats, the ruling class people. The peasants and the bourgeoisie, who included the merchants and professionals, comprised the third estate. And in the third class, in the third estate, there were the peasants, the farmers, and the bourgeoisie, the middle class people. The first and the second estates formed the privileged classes, whereas the third estate comprised the non-privileged classes. The non-privileged classes had to bear the burden of heavy taxation. So the first and the second estates, the clergy and the clergymen and the nobility, they had all the privileges. They enjoyed all the advantages. They enjoyed all the benefits. Whereas the third estate, that is the middle class people and the peasants, they were the non-privileged classes. They did not have any privileges. They did not have any benefits. And it was this class who had to pay the heavy taxes. They were burdened with heavy taxes. Privileged classes, which comprised only 1% of the total population, held almost 40% of the land. Now, the first and the second class people, the privileged classes, they comprised only 1% of the total population, but they held almost 40% of the land. Most of the wealth was concentrated in their hands. All the important posts in the state were held by the members of the higher classes. Besides, they were exempted from paying taxes. They had all the privileges and most of the wealth was in their hands, and they held the important posts in the state. And on top of that, besides all these privileges, they were exempted. They were freed from paying the taxes. They were not asked to pay the taxes. The peasants were forced to perform unpaid compulsory services. Those who did not pay their taxes were punished with imprisonment in the state prison called the Bastille. Therefore, Bastille came to be associated with oppression. So the peasants, the third estate third class people, they were forced to perform unpaid compulsory services. They were forced to perform some services and they were not paid for their work. And they had the people, the peasants who would not pay their taxes. When they failed to pay their taxes, they were punished with imprisonment in the state prison. They were put into the prison, and the prison it was called Bastille. In the 18th century, the French bourgeoisie, or the middle class, comprising the merchants, manufacturers, lawyers, doctors, and other professionals, had acquired great wealth. But despite their economic prosperity, they were denied social equality and political rights. So during the 18th century, the middle class people, they began to acquire wealth. But even after becoming wealthy, they were not given their social and political rights. They were denied social and political rights. Such discrimination caused resentment among them. The bourgeoisie played an important role in overthrowing the monarchy in France. So even after acquiring great wealth, they were not given any rights, and this led to their anger. They began to have an dislike or anger towards the government, and this was the reason why they overthrew the monarchy in France. So we saw the political causes, we saw the social causes. Now we'll go on to the economic causes. The economic causes played an important role in bringing about the revolution in France. The main economic reasons were the following. Extravagance of the ruling class led to the economic crisis. No differentiation was made between the personal income of the ruler and that of the state. There was no restriction on the luxurious ways of living adopted by the kings. The debt of France rose to almost $8 crore. So the ruling class people, the kings, they had no restriction in spending money, and this led to the debt of France rising to almost $8 crore. On account of the wars waged by Louis XIV, the national debt of France increased. Louis XV worsened the economic condition of France by participating in Austria's War of Succession and the 7 Years' War against Britain. The French support to the American War of Independence further added to the financial problem. So, France, they took part in plenty of wars, and this led to the financial burden. It led to financial crisis under France. The taxation policy in France was faulty. Faulty means something which has faults. So the taxation policy, the policy of taxes was faulty. Aristocracy and the nobility, which had the ability to pay, were exempted from paying the taxes. Now, what was the fault in the taxation policy? The high class people, they were capable, they had the ability to pay the taxes, but they were freed from paying the taxes. The peasants and the common men were burdened with heavy taxes. Taxes were collected by contractors who recovered the dues at their will and misappropriated a part of the taxes for their own benefit. The high class people, they were freed from paying the taxes, whereas the third class people, the common people, they had to pay heavy taxes, and these taxes, they were collected by the contractors. It was these contractors who decided how much amount they had to pay, the common people had to pay, and a part of that taxes they took for their own benefit. Thus, the extravagance of the ruling class and the defective and disorganized tax system pushed the French economy to the crisis point and triggered off the revolution. So, the extravagance of the ruling class, the ruling class were spent money without any restriction. That was one reason. The defective and disorganized tax system. The tax system was disorganized and defective. So these were the reasons that triggered off the revolution, that activated the revolution. So today we saw the causes. We saw the political causes, we saw the social causes, and we also saw the economic causes that led to the French Revolution. So I want you all to go through all of these causes. That's all for today. Thank you, girls.